Feeling friends is this concept that I came up with laying in bed one night. I have all these close friends who have these wonderful stories that can help change the world, life experiences that can help other people believe in themselves, hold tight to their dreams and make their dreams reality. On Feeling Friends, we talk about God, we talk about love, relationships. I have celebrity friends, I have non-celebrity friends. I have church members, family members. But when you watch and listen to Feeling Friends, you will learn and you will laugh. It's a community of friends helping to build each other up. So tune in to Feeling Friends every Sunday on WHCR 90.3 FM, or you can catch me on YouTube at Feeling Friends Radio. All right, I'll see you there. WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. What's up, everybody? You're back again with me, your boy Phil. I'm so happy to be back on air with you, my friends. Listen, shout out to everyone who's listening live on the radio. And shout out to our friends in New York. I can't even talk. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut who are checking us out. And for you friends who are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. I've got a great guest. I've got my homegirl who I met in Brooklyn a couple years ago, Jean Segarra-Rosa. We hit it off. We were working somewhere and we became really good friends. She's an artist. She's a creative. She is a true artist. And I'm a collector of Black art and minority art, so that's what I'm sitting behind here now. People always ask me, I got these two paintings from South Africa. My friend Jean is an excellent artist, and I want you guys to pick up all of her things and start collecting her items because she is going to blow up very soon. So without further ado, my friend, Jean Segarra-Rosa. What's up, friend?
Hello, Phil. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. You know, we go way back, not that far back. We go back to a time where we had to really help people, young people. But I want you to start with who you are. We'll get into
that. Well, my name is Jean Segarra-Rosa, and I am a native New Yorker, born and raised. I was born in what was called Spanish Harlem. There's not too much Spanish Harlem left, but I was born in Spanish Harlem, and I grew up in the Bronx. And then I went to college in Brooklyn. I went to Pratt, and I've been a Brooklynite since the late 80s. So I'm dating myself a little bit, but native New Yorker. My parents, my grandparents are from Puerto Rico, immigrated from Puerto Rico. Both my maternal and paternal grandparents, they migrated to New York in the 50s, which was also known as the Great Migration. A lot of Puerto Ricans came to New York in the 50s.
Right. So tell us, how did this world of art, how did this happen? Well, before we get there, let's talk about your childhood in New York. What was it like growing up in New York? Because you said you grew up in Spanish Harlem. You're on the voice of the Harlem right now. What was it like for you growing up in Spanish Harlem?
Well, I was born in Spanish Harlem, but I grew up in the Bronx.
In the Bronx, that's
right. So I grew up in
the Boogie Down Bronx.
The Boogie Down Bronx, the birth of hip hop. I saw it unfold. It was a really, really hard time. New York was just very, very rough and tough. Grew up in a really, really rough and tough environment, but the creativity was the culture of New York. Creativity was the culture of New York then. If you were down by law, if you were down, that meant that you knew how to break dance or boogie or draw, write graffiti, create graffiti. Your fashion, there was a lot of just innovation that was happening on the streets in terms of all of those things. Then you had like turntablism, like the DJing, the turntables, people just creating something out of absolutely nothing, putting the two turntables and a microphone together. A lot of us were poor, very poor. And, you still rocked whatever little gear you had. And that was like that whole, the B-boy, the B-girl, you took whatever you had and you just put a creative spin on it. And and it became iconic, the B-boy look, the B-girl look.
And that's one thing I've noticed about New York. It's like you could be the poorest person coming out of the projects, but they be the freshest people. They have everything walking I'm like, yo, where do y'all get all this money? Like, what are you doing? But that is New York. That's a New York way.
That's the classic swagger. You just you put your best foot forward, even if you just did not have much, to speak of, and if not, that you have like people like myself who I was very poor, and my talents is what gave me my swagger. I was that girl. I was that girl that knew how to write, draw graffiti, graffiti characters, or designing graffiti characters was my thing. As a little kid, I loved cartoons, and then when graffiti came on the scene, and you saw it everywhere. You get on the trains, you see it on the walls, you just saw it everywhere.
Now, you were one of those kids. Now, I don't want you to get yourself in trouble, but you were not one of those kids going around tagging up the city.
No, I was in the black books. My son was on the black books. I was legit. I was legit on the black books. Okay.
Right, on the black books, absolutely. Now, coming from that background, that poor background, what did that teach you? Especially being creative, but where did it take you to? The lessons that it taught you.
Well, so psychologically, it was very, hurtful. And, kids can be mean, cruel, whatever. And even though I didn't have the freshest gear or anything like that when I was little, I did have a lot of talent. And that made me down. That made me cool. And I was able to. It gave me a different type of confidence. It gave me a different type of purpose. It gave me identity. I was that girl. I was doing things that no one else was doing. And I became sought after. I joked with you the last time we had our show, and I would, draw a picture to get like a treat. Like, I want that gum that you got, or something like that. I would, trading what I didn't have for my art. And then by the time I was like 14 years old, I started doing airbrush graffiti T-shirts or jeans and things like that, or painting on denim jackets. That was a very popular style, painting on the back of denim jackets. So I was doing things like that, and turning a profit. So it gave me like this identity and purpose. And a confidence booster.
And I can imagine just being a creative and people actually liking your work. It's like, I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I'm an actor. I'm a singer. I do this. But it's like, oh, you like what I do? I appreciate that. Thank you. And it makes you feel good. It brings you to a whole different place. And you're bringing like life to. I mean, it's a God-given talent, and you're using your gifts. And you've done that amazing. And I've seen you in action. And I've seen, and I don't want to put your business out there, but Jean, you worked in the community with kids for years. You want to talk about that a little bit? And before we jump into that, I had the worst kids in America at that school when we worked at. And
they were challenging. Yes.
Worst, I don't know if you remember this one girl I had. You remember her? She was, I could not fix it. Jesus is what I was. That was the first one I worked at. So I had to figure out how to work with kids. But when she was in Jean's class, she was a totally different person. She would write, and I don't know if you remember who I'm talking about. I think she was a Puerto Rican young lady.
Oh, you talking about?
Yeah, don't say you know what I'm talking about.
She even put hands on you. Yeah,
she was about to. And she was
her.
Yeah. But
she was brilliant.
She found her. I don't know if she knew about drawing before you, but she found a talent, and she was the most. Her art was amazing because of you. So her
art was amazing. And
So
she
let's talk about
was very, very dedicated in the classroom. She was very disciplined.
that.
Um, she was a phenomenal, phenomenal artist, and was very that class that I taught was that was a challenging class as far as the students, and like it was an overcrowded class, and we had a lot of students that really needed special attention.
Right.
But that goes into a whole other discussion about some of the problems that we're having in the schools and these kids getting labeled as problematic. But then you find that energy just needs direction. It needs a direction.
Absolutely.
And my class, not only were the students challenging, the way I structured that class, the way I was teaching that class, the content that was in that class was AP level. It was not an easy class. It wasn't, we're just going to sit down.
It was AP level. It was.
Yeah. We're not sitting down and playing around with paints or anything. Like, it was extremely structured and extremely focused. And it was not an easy class for anyone. But I told my students, if you follow what I'm telling you to the letter, I guarantee you, by the time you finish this course, you are going to amaze yourself at what you're capable of doing. And they did. And she was definitely a testament.
They had their own issues, but the thing I learned about students and kids is that they have so many other things going on. They are given adult experiences, and they're supposed to be kids, and they walk through this life trying to figure out how to deal with adult things that their parents and people put on them, and they just need to go to school. They go to school, all these things. So people like you gave the kids hope. But you had worked with kids before I met you years prior to that in the communities, in the ghettos, in the hood, teaching kids art and giving them freedom. What is it about art that gives this freedom to you in expressing on paper, on canvas? What is that freedom like?
For myself personally?
Yeah. Or for
well, for me, going back to my childhood, so I did not come from means, right? So I didn't have like that type of environment or that type of support where it's just like, wow, my child has something here. Let me try to find, resources, like whatever, a Saturday program, an after school program, let's pool our money together to get her some instruction. Like, none of that happened for me. I became very self-directed. Now, self-directed because what it did for me is it was a therapy. It was a way to escape into a world that I can create on my own and create all the rules on my own and just like explore and fantasize and stay inspired. So that was my foundation. That was my earliest years. And I mean, now as an adult, I have a different relationship with my personal art. I find that, I make more art for clients than I do for myself. But what it has done when I do create for myself, it still is therapy. It still is therapy. And that's the thing. That's the relationship. That's what art is doing for me. It's like, there are some times when I am painting and it's almost an outer body experience. You almost like, you forget there's no plan. There's no thought. It just, it's starting to come through.
That's how being an actor is. It's like, you really, this last film I did, you literally like, it's like outer body. Like, was I even there? You don't even feel like you're there. It's like a whole different, even when I sing, it's like I'm not even there. It's like something that's taken over me.
Yes.
It's like Holy Spirit has been through, some spirit is guiding me. Something is like moving you as you're an artist and as you're there on that stage, as you you have your canvas and your brush.
Sometimes, like when I'm painting, it's like that, the visceral feeling of the bristles, like here, like all of the senses come into play, right? Like, you know, you can smell the oil from the oil paint. You can hear the bristles brushing up against the canvas, or against, like in this one, this is on masonite. So it's a hard board, and you're going to get a different sound. You're going to get a different feel, you know, the pressure that you have to apply, like all these different things come into play, where it's almost like a dance. It's almost like a kata in karate. It's like this whole flow that begins to happen, and you lose yourself in the flow.
Absolutely. How did you transition? Well, what we didn't tell is Jean has also worked in the industry, the movie entertainment industry. How did you transition over to that industry, that world? And let's talk about that, because she's a major art. She's huge. Thank you for coming on the show, Jean. I appreciate you. How did you
Thank you.
That part of the world?
Well, let's see. Like, so you know, I first started in comics, in the comic book industry, and then later went into what I fantasized. When I was a little girl, that's all I dreamed of is working in animation, working with cartoons. I myself am not an animator, but I've worked in the industry. I worked for Nickelodeon for many, many years. Yeah, like more than 10 years.
That's a long
So
time.
I worked on Dora the Explorer, Dora and Friends, Go Diego Go. Yes, and it was like my dream come true, because when I was a little girl, that's all I dreamt of doing, is just working with cartoons. And your question was, how did it happen? I'm extremely blessed, because this is one of the good things, and you know this from like, you know, your like your sorority fraternity brothers, sorry. You just develop a network when you're in college. That's part of the college experience. So I am extremely blessed, because the people that I knew from Pratt, they move on, they do their thing, and they get their door, the door open for them. They get their foot in the door, and they know that I'm a good worker or whatever. And they say, hey, why don't you come on board, take the test or whatever. And I was just extremely blessed, because a good friend of mine, he's my brother from another mother. He started that Nickelodeon. Yeah.
They always say your network, your net is your net worth. I said that right. Your network is your net worth. So if you don't know anybody, things ain't really, you know, a lot of things that I've got in life, the job where I met you, I knew somebody. Pretty much a lot of jobs that I've had, I just said, hey, you got a job for me, good. And it happened. So it's with faith, and you move forward. I want to get into, when I want to talk about this faith thing before we run out of time. I want to talk about faith and get into your pictures and your mother, because your mother's very, I'll tell your mom, I said, hey, I've never met your mother, but I feel like that's my homegirl. So let's talk about.
She's gonna love that.
Yeah, see, I feel like she's my homegirl. She always asks me, tell us hey.
I know.
This whole thing with you, with having faith and belief in yourself that you will make it, and you where does that? Let's talk about that in your life. How does that play a role with you knowing that I'm gonna be okay, it's gonna be all right, things are gonna happen for me, and it's gonna get better, if you even feel that? What do you think?
Well,
as an artist, from an artist standpoint, we know how hard it is for those listeners. We know how hard it is being an artist. I've been in New York. You took a picture of this picture of me in my house at my party when I was super scared. I was hungry, but I wanted to be an artist. It was something I had to get on TV. So that's what I mean from that standpoint of I would depend on my art to make it.
Well, for me, I think that part of it was youth, right? When you're younger, I think we're just wired to be braver, to be more daring, to be more audacious. And so I believe that some of it was that in my youth, I just felt a little bit more audacity, but I was also extremely blessed to have good teachers at my local high school who saw that I had potential, and I had good teachers that encouraged me, because my faith was, I'm going to get out of the projects. Like, that was the mantra. So it wasn't really like, oh, my art is going to get me out of the projects. It was just, I've got to get out of the projects. So, and that was my faith. That was my mantra. It was just like, I'm going to do better than this. I'm going to do better than this.
You knew it was something better than that. You knew it was something else.
Correct.
And a lot of kids don't know that. A lot of kids don't know it's something better. And that's the problem, especially in New York. These projects are so big. They span blocks, and they're huge.
Yes. And these file cabinets, you get lost in these file cabinets. No, absolutely.
You do. People don't realize, and people pass down generational thoughts like that of saying in their projects and not moving on. So I'm glad you had that to move on.
Oh yeah. It's very, very easy. And the thing is that hood life has a very has a culture. There's a culture there,
especially in New York.
And it's like if you step away from that, it's like you're leaving the tribe, So there is that pressure.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm an older woman now, and sometimes when I go back to the projects to visit my folks, I've had people in my own family say things like, "Man, you act like you never grew up in the Bronx. Oh, it's like you just." You just from Brooklyn. You're not even from the Bronx. You're from Brooklyn. Yeah.
Well,
and that's an old rivalry.
After 30-some years, you're like, you've been in the But it's like, I left. But the mind is to move forward. The mind is to get better. The mind is to progress. I mean, I have a beautiful apartment. I don't want to be here forever. I mean, there's an apartment, $18 million apartment overlooking Central Park that I should be in. I should be going forward. So I thought should be move higher and higher. Jean, what would you tell you? Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think in my older age, like that becomes more challenging. I think that as and this is as an artist, and this in your field. Like if you have a bad review, if you have a bad show, if you like those things challenge your faith.
Oh, yeah.
You see, when you're young, or at least, that's the way I felt when I was younger. I felt like it's possible. It is possible. As I'm older, I find myself worried. What if it doesn't happen? You start worrying about, making the rent, paying the bill, or, supporting your family or whatever those things. Right. And so your faith gets more challenged. When you're young, it's the peer pressure thing. Oh, if I'm out of the projects, then I got homies that are never going to talk to me again.
Right.
You know what I mean? But now as an adult, it's like, there's it's almost like your own ego and your own mind and your own fear begins to challenge your faith because the sting of failure. It starts getting like, I'm just going back to your whole faith question. I find myself like really, really, really having to work a little bit harder. Yeah.
Absolutely. Jean, do you have any art for us to see right now? I don't know if you want to. Do you have anything, or just?
Well, I have this. This is. I'm still working on this. This was the early part of 2021. I think it was back in March. Okay. I worked on this with one of my former students. We submitted for what was called World Happiness Day.
Okay.
And they had these artists from all over the world doing time-lapse drawings and paintings and dance, different disciplines. And they merged it together and launched it for like World Happiness Day, which is like a mental health awareness initiative. So we got like so far, and then I just had it just sitting here, and now I've picked it up again, and I'm going back into it and refining it, which, that's a classic approach, like classical artists. Some of them would take years to finish a painting.
Right.
Me, because I do so much commercial work, it's like you just got to get it done fast.
Right.
So this is the thing that I've gone back to, and I'm working on
that title
now.
What is that title?
This one, this is like my third iteration. My initial one is actually for a book cover, Jazz in Jail. Yes, so I have a black and white version of this that I painted a few years ago for Luis Reyes Rivera's post-mortem book, the poet Luis Reyes Rivera, who was one of my mentors. And so this was the cover of his post-mortem book. I changed it up a little bit, and I've done a color rendition, but this is the third iteration of this particular type of illustration that I've done.
I love it, and I have to
thank you. I'll show you something I have back here
so they can see.
This was this. Let me see. Can you see that?
Yeah, you can see it. I like that. Has a Puerto Rican flag, right?
There you go. Yeah.
There you go, right there.
But so this is another iteration of a painting that I had done some years ago, and it was called El Nacionado, right? The Nationalist.
Nacionado.
Right.
I'm working on my Spanish. Sorry.
I need to work on my Spanish too. I'm a Nuyorican, right? I'm not Puerto Rican. I'm Nuyorican. That's a whole other thing.
Right.
Yes. That's another discussion that we could have about the whole Puerto Rican experience, Puerto Rican in New York experience.
Right, absolutely.
How we can hear in Spanish and speak in English type of thing. The New York.
I heard a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, I was just saying that black and white Puerto Rican flag. This was inspired behind some young artists in Puerto Rico who recently they painted over the Puerto Rican flag in Old San Juan. They painted it in black and white because of all like the political unrest that's been happening in the country and stuff like that. There's been just this long, I wouldn't say a fight, but kind of where it's the questions and the arguments about should Puerto Rico become independent,
right?
Because right now we're a colony of the U.S. and therein lies, there are some pluses and there's some minuses that happen with that.
The way, my friend, my good friend, and you guys know him well. We tell his family's there, his mother's there, so many people, and the way they did Puerto Ricans who are Americans during Hurricane Maria, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my gosh, deplorable.
They didn't give a damn about those people. Our people, the citizens of that place of territory of the United States, it's despicable. It's horrible. And what I like about Puerto Ricans is they don't, we have a lot of people in New York, a lot of cultures in New York City, but Puerto Ricans are always down with black people.
That's right.
Like we black, what I mean?
That's right.
But then you got a whole other side. We talked about that before, G. But you do have people who are always down. So I'm always, Puerto Ricans are my friends here in New York City. So
that's right. That's right.
Puerto Rican Day Parade is always on my birthday, June 13th in the city. It's always on June 13th for some reason here in the city. But yeah, so shout out to your people.
Yeah, that's a crazy party over there. That's a crazy party.
Let's talk about final thoughts. What would you have to say to our audience who had someone who has a dream, someone who wants to be an artist as a kid out there who wants to be you, maybe? Never know. What would you tell them?
That I have some mixed thoughts about young artists that want to be involved in the industry today. So it all depends on what it is that this is me, here goes, the educator part, right? It all depends on what you want to do with your art. What do you want to do? If you want to be a commercial artist, like you want to go into animation, or let's just say animation, because especially with like Pixar and all of this, and video games and things like that. I would say definitely get some formal training, because I attended a panel of the artists that did Spider-Man, Spider-Verse, that movie.
With the Puerto Rican kid?
With Miles Morales.
Miles Morales?
Yeah.
Puerto Rican?
Right.
Yeah.
He's black and Puerto Rican. He's black and Puerto Rican.
Okay.
Yeah. And that movie is absolutely brilliant. Just absolutely phenomenal. So listening to the artists on the panel, one of them, he said, I think he was the lighting director for the movie. He said, we get a lot of technicians. We don't get enough artists. Knowing how to do the animation and the composition and stuff on the computer is great. You got to know that stuff to be in that field. But not enough know and understand like color theory, light theory, really, really understanding it on a painterly level. And so when they find people that are artists and understand that along with the technical stuff, that's the jackpot. So for a young artist, I say, if you're going to go commercial, you have to know all the latest software. Okay. If you want to go commercial, if you want to go animation, you have to know the foundations of art. And so therefore I say you have to go to art school. Now, if you're a fine artist, that's when the controversy happens, because they say that it's very debated now. It's hotly debated now, whether you should go into debt, a whole bunch of debt for going to art school. When sometimes when you're a fine artist, it's really about like your vision, and you don't want to get trained out of it. You don't want to get inundated with so much, whatever they're gonna download on you, and then it pulls away.
Be like man.
Or whatever. It's debated. It's debated whether artists should be going to art school and having a huge bill and stuff like that, and you're not going to get a job. That's hotly debated right now. The industry is oversaturated, so therein lies, a lot of problems. But you have to go to art school, get your foundations if you want to be a working artist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jean, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, always. I love and appreciate you.
Tell people how to get to your website and everything, and I'm going to put it on the YouTube channel below. You guys can go check her out. How to get to your website and follow you on Instagram, maybe.
Yes. Well, I do have a website. It's www.jsegarra-rosa.com. And there you'll see like samples of my illustrations, my paintings, some of the commercial work I've done, a little bit of quite a bit of some of the classroom stuff that I've done, like photos of me working in classroom with students and a couple of their projects. But yeah, there's some of the painting stuff, some of the, stuff that I did for like Nickelodeon and things like that. You see like a little variety of stuff on my website. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that is JeanSegarra-Rosa.com.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
J. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. But you'll put that in the show notes.
I'll put it at the bottom so you guys go check her out, get her art. Jean, thank you so much. Hold tight for me in the waiting room, all right? Hold tight.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Listen, we had a great show. My friend Jean, listen, she stepped out on faith. She stepped out and she followed her dreams. She's continuing to follow her dreams. I'm doing the same thing. But what I always tell you guys, you got to put God first, believe that anything is possible, and know that you are enough to make it happen. You're watching Philin' Friends. You're listening to Philin' Friends. I'll see you guys next time right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, The Voice, Harlem. Holla. See y'all later.